The world we know now was not like this around 200 years back. Everything used to go according to the law of nature. Monsoon, summer, winter were in coordination with each other, and the cycle of weather was almost same for millions of years. But what went wrong? Hi friends, you're watching Mindscape. In 1800, Industrial Revolution took place. Lot of factories, lot of production, demand and innovation of new things increased. And to generate energy, they had to burn fuel and natural resources. And this process resulted a massive CO2 emission. It has been said that Industrial Revolution is between 1780 to 1840, but current CO2 emission proves it never stopped. In just 200 years, many of the natural laws were malfunctioned. The system, which running fluently for millions of years, got into trouble in just 200 years. Today we face each season at its extremity, let it be monsoon, winter or summer, and uncontrolled behavior of weather creating many problems in our day-to-day life, floods, earthquakes and super hot summers. Due to such impact, thousands of lives have already taken away. In recognition of this, 179 countries and European Union spent 2 weeks in Paris last December, hammering out the final wording of an agreement to keep global temperature increase well below 2 degrees Celsius and if possible below 1.5 degrees Celsius. The reduction in temperature can only be achieved through a significant reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases. This meeting was one of the largest gatherings of the world leaders ever seen. But 2 degrees Celsius? What do they mean by keeping below 2 degrees Celsius? Let's see. This temperature represents the average temperature of entire Earth. But 2 degrees Celsius sounds not much, right? But let's get into history. Since we start collecting this temperature data of Earth, we see in 1890 the temperature was minus 0.37 degrees Celsius. In 1940, it reached to minus 0.03 degrees Celsius. In next 40 years, it got to 0.27 degrees Celsius. In 2000, it was 0.42 degrees Celsius. And now in 2016, it is 0.99 degrees Celsius. 16 of the 17 warmest years in the last 136-year record all have occurred since 2001. The year 2016 ranks as the warmest year on record. So right now we are at almost 1 degree Celsius, and which is the warmest till now, and Paris Agreement is trying to keep it below 2 degrees Celsius or possibly below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Compared to today 1 degree Celsius and its impact, 2 degrees Celsius will be disastrous. But then why targeting that number? Even if each country decides to give a lot of efforts, we will somehow be able to stop it below 2 degrees Celsius. But without any guidelines and efforts, it can go anywhere, and the effects of it will be even much more worst. And that's why they have decided to put a practical number of 2 degrees Celsius. And to achieve this target, everyone who attended Paris Agreement meeting made emission cutting pledges. The US, for example, pledged to cut US climate pollution by 26 to 28% from 2005 levels. China's target is to lower the carbon intensity of GDP by 60% to 65% by 2030 compared to what they had in 2005. The European Union plans to cut emission by 40% by 2030 compared to what they had in 1990. When we talk about CO2 emission, we should know the top countries which are contributing to this situation the most. The number one CO2 emitting country is China, which emits 30% of total emission. Then comes United States with 15%. After that comes European Union with 10% emission, followed by India and Russia with emission of 7% and 5% respectively. These top 5 countries emits almost 70% of total CO2 emissions of the world, and the rest of the world emits 30%. So how this agreement works? Each party has to go back to their domestic governments in order to gain domestic approval or in some cases have it passed by domestic law. China, for instance, voted to adopt the proposal of the Paris Agreement at the closing meeting of the National People's Congress Standing Committee. The US used a presidential executive agreement. Once their domestic laws give approval, then the parties will submit acceptance to the UN to prove that they are ready to join. The countries should be reported every 5 years and are to be registered by the UN Secretariat. The countries have no binding as a matter of international law. There will be no mechanism to force a country to set a target by a specific date, and no enforcement if a set target is not met. Then how these countries perform well? Suppose one country doesn't perform and doesn't meet the target. There is no law to force on these countries, but the amount of guilt and shame they have to face simply because the low-performing party who is directly affecting a climate change and global warming is much more. As well, it will be disrespectful to all other teammates who is putting efforts. On the other hand, the country which performs good will get appreciation and admiration in the entire world, and this will no doubt work better than any law. At the Paris conference in 2017 also decided that the developed countries will give $100 billion a year as a climate finance till 2025. These funds of $100 billion a year will be given as a aid to developing countries for action on a climate change adaptation and mitigation. But you may say, why the developed countries have to pay to developing countries? Just because they have a lot of money? No. On the foundation of each developed country is industrial revolution. The amount of money and power they have is because of the industrial revolution, which is directly caused climate change. And developing countries were not industrialized back then, and even now they are dependent on developed countries for industrial needs. So altogether, developed countries are somehow responsible for such a massive climate change, and it's their duty to pay those countries who is facing climate disasters. But this finance specifically will be used to fight against climate change. These funds will be given to parties most vulnerable to the effects of climate change, includes least developed countries and small island developing states. That's it about Paris Agreement. Please check our other video on deforestation and its effects on global warming, which is mentioned in the description below. We all can pray that this initiative of all countries will work beyond expectations, because some or other day this climate warming is going to affect each and every individual on this planet. Hope you like this video. Thanks for watching.